Hello, hello. Jamie Hernandez here, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method, helping you bridge the gap between your spiritual practice and your business practice so that you can grow emotionally and financially. And that way you'll have this impact on yourself, thus impact on the collective. Hey, Charlene, welcome, welcome. So my question for you today is, when you think about your year, what runs through your body? So I want you to feel it now. Okay, think about your year. What runs through your body? What runs through your mind, right? What are the images? And what are the feelings? All right, so this is an active workshop. So come in as if you're taking a real deal workshop, because that's what it is. So you can leverage your time and my experience. And that way you're not just going to go away with like, oh, that was great. You know, you're actually going to go away with some transformation, some way of really literally setting yourself up for abundance next year. So what runs through your mind? What runs through your body? What runs through your energy when you think of this year, 2021? And I want you to just sit with that, because that is going to affect your next 365 days. So some of you might be like, oh my God, right? And so some of you might be like, okay, great. And there might be a little bit of in between. So you want to start to see, right? You know, we don't want to just necessarily put it all in a bad year or all in a good year. We just want to start to see, okay, if this is the way I'm feeling, whether I believe that's good or bad, then that's going to affect my, next 365 days, which is great because we always have the choice of creating a new habit now. Okay, not tomorrow when we have time, not yesterday, not when we're better, not when we have more energy, not when we have more money, not when the habits for realizing and embodying abundance is available to you right now. So come in with your journal, come in with your body, come in with your mind, come in with your spirit, and let yourself just start to answer the following question. So if you're here live, say hello. And if you are here for the replay, #replay, because I promise everyone here on the call today, and if you come back, that I'm going to answer all your questions so we can continue the coaching journey together. And hopefully you're going to have a breakthrough right here on this live. And that's what we want. We want to continue to move the transformation along in your journey. Okay? So what we have to understand is that there are things that we can control and things that we can't control. So we all know that. And that's the beauty of being a spiritual entrepreneur, is that we have all these assets, right? So this past year, right? This past year is simply a reflection of your practice. So I want you to hear that just more from a factual point of view, an objective point of view, versus, oh my God, I'm not good, or I'm not enough, because we as human beings tend to hear these things from that place. But all we need to do is, oh, okay, great, now I know the antidote. Wonderful. So now I'm going to lean in and just start to see, right? And the funny thing is, there's a lot of energy around this word control. And the only reason why it might be gripping you is whether you're giving the power to that word, to that idea, to that concept, or you're actually taking creative control back. Because we are conscious creators of our life. And that's what I want to continue today, to continue to allow yourself. Today's topic is called How to Set Yourself Up for Abundance in 2022, and just life and business in general. So even though we're in 2022, it's just in general, okay? But this is a good time to start to reflect on our last 365 days so that our next 365 days becomes a conscious co-creation versus allowing our external perception of things be the creator of our life, right? So we want to take back the power of this sense of what we call control, right? And we want to start to own that. And we want to start to allow ourselves to know, oh, right, I am co-creating this. So your life in the last 365 days, we want to start to, understand we are sovereign beings, and we have been co-creating it this whole time, individually and collectively, okay? And unless we own that, then it's always going to feel like we're in the victim state consciousness, where life is happening to me, versus the creative consciousness where life is happening for me. And then once we start to move through that, and we talked about this last week, life starts to move through me. And then as we continue to practice being, life, happens as me. Hello, Ellen. So answer the questions in your journal, answer the questions here on the live, because it may literally change your life for the next 365 days. Because again, habits happen right now. A habit can be chosen in this very moment. Empowerment can be chosen in this very moment. So we may as well choose it right now, right? Because otherwise, this is what it is to live in this, being in this moment, right? Being here together. Okay, so let's take our energies and collaborate and allow that frequency of joy, a frequency of excitement, that frequency of co-creation to happen now, right? Because this very moment will affect your 365 days in the next 2022. So we might as well take back the control, take the power from that sense of control, and be that co-creator of our life. So let's jump into it. It is I always run these things like a live training, like you're paying for it, because it is very valuable for myself and for you. And I'm just looking here because sometimes I don't see the comments, which drives me nuts. Anyway, okay, number 1. What does the word abundance mean for you? Take your pen, free flow it. I don't want you to be like, okay, the philosophical, really good answer that I want, I want you to take your pen and write it down, because we want to look at the subconscious. We want to look at what's happening in the basement. We want to look at like the things that are driving the bus that we don't even realize, okay? So when you start to write down the word abundance, just let your pen flow, okay? I want you to start to write, like, what is the meaning of abundance for me? And just write it all down, okay? Because that is going to give you a real life perspective of what's actually happening in your mind. Because if you just go by the philosophy, if you just go by the, what you think sounds great and pretty, there's not really going to be any room for change or transformation or realization, okay? So number 1, what does abundance mean for you? Write it down in the comments, write it down in your journal, okay? And now, very often we want abundance in certain categories in our life. We want abundance in our finances, we want abundance in our health, we want abundance in our relationship, we want abundance, in our life in general. So I'm just going to go through some very basic categories, and I'm going to ask you questions, and these questions are to see your progression. So here, let me just ask you, just so your subconscious will come into play. Think about your business and your financial goal, the financial goals you have achieved. And I want you to look at 2 things. What are you feeling right away when I ask you that question? What are you feeling, right? What are you thinking? What's going on? Do you start to look at the lack? Because I asked you not what you didn't achieve, okay? But that's where our mind will naturally go. I want you to look at what have you achieved, okay? This is part of the strategy. This is part of the process I promised you, okay? What have you achieved? Okay, and just watch if you're having problems with this. Watch if you're like, I'm stuck, I can only think of the things I haven't done, right? And if you're thinking of all the things you have done, great. Write them all down, okay? So if you're having difficulty, think of yourself 5 to 10 years back. And think of things that you have achieved financially, okay? Maybe all of a sudden you realize, okay, I'm doubling my prices. Maybe all of a sudden you created a business model that generates more money. Maybe you've created a business model that generates more joy, right? because abundance is joy, right? Joy is abundance. Yeah, maybe you've created something that, you know, it's making you money, but it's burning you at the same time. So again, we're not looking at the perfect end result, because the perfect end result is always going to be over there. Do you see? Like, you know, we're always just as co-creators of our life. There's always something we're moving towards, or hopefully there's something moving towards. Sometimes we freeze, sometimes we run away, sometimes we fight what it is we want unconsciously. But if we want to create that abundance, and if we want to set ourselves up for abundance, we want to start to look at where we're moving towards, right? And so if we're thinking of, okay, I wanted to double my income, but that didn't happen, then again, we want to start to think, well, what did I achieve? And what did I achieve between the 5 or 10 years back? What are the leaps and bounds that I've achieved financially? And if you have doubled or tripled or whatever your income, then great, write that down, okay? So we're looking at the progression, we're looking at data, okay? So that's question number 1. Hope you guys are following. Yes, okay, let me know what's going on for you, anything that that is like a woohoo, you want to celebrate. And again, I hate the fact that I have to look at my computer to see if there's comments. But okay, here, number 2. What abundance have you created in your relationships? So again, that's like a very big, broad word, but just start to think about maybe a handful of people, your friends, your partner, your teammates, right? If you have teammates, your coworkers, if you have coworkers, what abundance have you created in those relationships? Have you created deeper connections? You know, are you, have you maybe mended certain kind of relationships? Have you maybe cut off certain relationships that you know are not feeding you anymore, nourishing you? You know, have you gravitated towards groups or places where you feel more joy, more excitement? And if you haven't, then what abundance do you want to create in your relationships? Okay? Again, habits can always happen right now. So if you've been feeling lonely and isolated, what do you want, right? Do you want deeper connections? Do you want soul sisters and soul brothers? Do you want spiritual mentors? Do you want somebody to play with? Do you have, a certain game that you love and you want to have other people to play that game too, right? I love tennis, which, now I have to figure out something else because it's winter. Like, what is it for you? Do you want more dancing buddies? Do you want people who you can communicate with, who get you? Like, start to allow yourself spaciousness and room for what it is you desire, okay? And bring it into your consciousness, because again, like I said, if you start to think about how you feel, what was going on in your mind, body, and energy, and anybody write that down, if you start to notice what you were feeling mentally, physically, energetically in the last year, right? Because that's going to affect your next 365 days. So now we're consciously creating a habit that's going to move you and expand you into where you want. And this is what, if you were to work with me, that's what we continually do. We start to clear, first of all, what is blocking you, what is your perception, and how to move you towards where you want to go. Okay? And questions are probably one of them. It's not the answers, but it's actually the questions you ask yourself. So that's why I talked about, bringing your journal, because journaling is probably one of the most powerful tools you can use for manifesting and creating your life. Because it's the first form, because form follows consciousness. It's the first form that you can bring here down into earth. So it gets out of the soul, it gets out of your mind, from your heart into this physical manifest world, and then your mind and your brain starts to see it. Okay, so there's something, I call it my book of spells, because you spell out what it is you want, and you literally, literally what happens, you begin to create that. And it happens with asking yourself good questions. Okay, I don't want to go too much on a tangent, but I've been kind of like falling down my phone at night, trying to find movies, and that was really creating this kind of like wiry energy. Then I wasn't feeling well rested. And I didn't say, Jamie, you have to do more of this, and you have to do more of this, you have to do more of this. I asked myself simply, Jamie, what nightly routine do you have to do to nourish your nervous system? Because what happens when you ask questions, your mind will start to look for the answers. So that's why I'm always asking you these trainings within questions, okay? Okay, number 3. Let me know if this is making sense, okay? Number 3, hey, Jasmine, hello. Okay, now in health, what health abundance have you created? Okay, and if you're not sure, how is your energy, right? Is your energy when you are, doing what you're doing, like full of energy? Are you kind of like, or you're starting to burn out? Okay, so that kind of gives you the symptoms and the gauges, and it's important to know those. Otherwise, it's, we're just going to kind of utilize ourself and our energy, our mind, and our body like a machine until it kind of like dies out. Okay, so, and again, if you're having trouble and what it is you've achieved, okay, think about yourself 10 years ago and think about today. Today, and especially I know a lot of you are living in these affluent neighborhoods, okay? Most of the world lives on $2 a day. Okay, so if you are on your phone listening to this, you are living in an affluent neighborhood. You're living in luxury, okay? So think about in your health 10 years ago, what is the abundance you've created? Do you make more nutritious meals? Do you pray before you eat? I'm just spinning things out. I'm not saying this is what makes abundance, but for you, I'm just giving you examples. Do you all of a sudden, like for me, I've always wanted to, shop organic, and it's like, oh, I realized, wow, I'm doing that now. I've always wanted to become a yoga teacher. It's like, whoa, I'm doing that now. Like, if I think about myself, even if you're having a hard time, keep on going back. Go back even to when you're 10 years old, right? Because that's going to remind you of all the dreams that you're dreaming of and how they're in reality today. Maybe you studied something and all of a sudden you finished that study and then, you're doing something related to that, or that's helped you for something, So just start to think. And again, if it doesn't come right now, I want you to sit with the things you have achieved, not the things like, oh my God, the 10 pounds I wanted to lose, I didn't lose. Like, no. Think about, okay, I started looking into, exercise routines. I started looking at, like nutritious recipes. So you want to start to let your mind, because this is strategic, let your mind see the data, actual data for your achievements. Okay, so this is a process, because otherwise we're just going to go into our negative bias, which is what humans do, and then you're going to just quit. It's just like, okay, I'm done. You're not even going to start. Okay, the 365 days are already decided. You're like that, right? Okay, so let's go with number 1. Okay, the definition of abundance. A lot of people equate abundance to money, okay, and which is normal, because it is what when we're younger, mommy, can I have that? No, we don't have enough money. Can I have this toy? No, right? And so we equate those two things. So it's very natural, normal. But what we want to see is that money is just simply a tool. So it's almost like saying, if I don't have money, or it's almost like saying, if I don't have a hammer, then I am not abundant. And what we have to realize is abundance already exists. And abundance, you simply have to go outside in what I call the Garden of Eden, or what many call the Garden of Eden. Look at the million of snowflakes, unique snowflakes. look at all of the trees that are happening here. If you live in a hot country, look at the grains of sand. Look at the, ocean. The easiest way is simply if we all of us took a breath right now, there's no lack of breath, right? It is this abundance already exists. And so what we want to start to understand is that if we start to resonate and allow ourselves to resonate in the frequency of abundance, which is all around us, the byproduct of that will be things like money, will be things like deeper relationships, will be, health, right? So we want to start to understand, the creation of abundance and how it works. Because if I put $1 million in all of your banks today, and you have not been, practicing this frequency of abundance, your mind will unconsciously go from the scarcity, like, oh my God, I just got it. Like, I'm not sure, if I'm going to lose this tomorrow, there's an unconscious thing happening there. Okay. So let me review the steps, okay, of why we did, we looked at, our finances, we looked at our health, we looked at our relationships. Let me review that because this is the process. Number one, you want to literally write down so you can see data that has been working. So it's almost like literally a database because your intellectual mind needs to see data. That's just your intellectual mind. So we might as well give it the thing that makes it feel safe, the thing that makes it feel, oh, okay. And we're basing it on facts. We're not basing it on something that we're making up, right? So step number one is writing down data that is working. So I asked you guys what it is you're achieving, what abundance you're achieving in those categories, not what you're not achieving, because right away it's the 365 days will be, decided for you, okay? So what will happen, right, is the good news is what happens when we start to look at that data, right, is that now we actually have an operations manual, okay? And we actually can start to kind of detract from that actual data processing, okay? And so step number two, okay, if you start to pick the positive in your financial, your relationships, your health, and your, what I call mentors, you want to start to look at the data and you want to start to look at, well, this next 365 days, then if that was possible, then what is possible for the next 365 days? So if one of your data entry points were like, oh, I doubled my income, and you can even write it in numbers, right? So if I made whatever, 100K this year, and so then the next step to the process is to just look at, well, what's possible then? Oh, next year it's possible to double that to 200K and more than I can imagine. So we don't want to limit ourselves to the number, but we also want to take the known and bring it into the unknown, because that's what the mind constantly fears. And when you bring the known to the unknown very close to each other, it's not so intimidating, right? So when I teach people about breathing, for example, I don't start doing all of these techniques. I start to think about okay, when you fall asleep and the way you breathe, think about that. So I asked you guys, so let's say you're like, okay, well, 100K, that's not exactly what happened this year. Some people it is and some people isn't. You want to start to look at, well, 5, 10 years ago, what were the achievements that I've achieved? Did I double my income? Am I making income for something I actually love, right? Think of all your achievements. Have I discovered, a business model that actually creates more money for less time? Like, think about that so that you have real life data. And then again, step number 2, what is possible, right? And then you can actually write it down again so that your mind has some sort of like, ooh, right? Because if you have no sense of like tangibility, it's very hard. It's kind of like saying, I would like more health or more money, and somebody gives you a smoothie or a carrot. You know, I want more money and somebody gives you $1, right? But when you're like, oh my God, if I made 100K this year and then next year I can make 200K, that's possible, and more than I can imagine. It gives you a starting point. It gives you a starting point, and it comes from this well of abundance, okay? And we already talked about that frequency of where abundance is. Abundance already exists, right? If you go outside in the Garden of Eden, it already exists. So it's a byproduct. And then now what we're doing is we're just creating some sort of structure so that our mind can kind of follow that, because otherwise it's going to just follow the same program that it, you know, the same feelings in the body, the same feelings in the mind, the same feelings in energy will automatically play out. Okay, let me know if this is making sense. And I see Cindy here. Hello, Cindy. And ooh, yay. Okay, I can see here. If I don't have a hammer, I don't have abundance. What a beautiful reframe. Love this shift in perception is what Jasmine says. Carly, balance in my life, strong in my body. Carlene, love, care, and support and help. Yay. Okay, this is what we were moving towards. And I love this. Write it down. Yes. Okay. Now, step number 3. Okay, this is super important because for all your spiritual entrepreneurs out here, you guys, sometimes what happens, okay, is we do all these workshops and we do the healing and we do the energy workshops and we do the coaching and we do the business and we do the mindset and we do right? And when we're goal setting, sometimes we're thinking, we're always moving toward. But guess what? When you're always moving toward, it's like you have nothing to anchor you, right? So you want to start to see with the beautiful because many of you guys have been on this earth for more than decades, right? So obviously you have some assets. So now when you start to think of your achievements, okay, any achievement, don't tell me you cannot be here on this call with a phone without having achieved something, okay? So maybe you're sitting in your place and you're renting the thing or you're owning the thing. You know what I mean? So we want to kind of start to think in that abundant mindset, and I want you to start to think, what are the practices that got me here? Okay. So when you start to think of your finances, when you start to think of your relationships, when you start to think of your health, what are the practices that got you here? And I forgot to ask one more question about the different categories. Okay, and I want to go back to this because I think it's important from a spiritual perspective, but just from a practical perspective. Okay, I forgot to ask, think about the mentors, right, in your life that have taught you abundance, right? And that emanate abundance, right? That transmit abundance. Therapists, coaches, could be your own like children, just think about mentors in your life. Maybe they're, authors, maybe there's someone online. Think about the mentors in your life that have brought you this kind of new perception, new practice, or exemplified or resonated abundance. Okay, because I think that's important, because ultimately, consciousness, right, God, or whatever you want to call it, is here, and it's hidden in itself in unconsciousness, right, to find itself again. So us human beings are simply that mirror, playing that game, finding ourselves in each other. And so I think this question is super important, because in yoga we come from this idea, this concept that we are all one. And so if you want to think of it from a human perspective, we are constantly, consciousness is constantly trying to find itself within itself, right? It's starting to see itself within itself. It's starting to see its ability to hold and love unconditionally, to see in everything in the light, whether it's dark, whether it's traumatic, whether it's whatever it is, we're starting to find that. So I think it's really important to start to see the mentors in your life, okay? And again, if you were to work on me, we'd still look, underneath the hood, we'd still look at where the blocks are, we'd still look at the deep core wounds, we'd still look at the trauma, but we look at it from that place where we actually can hold all of it and welcome all of it. Because as a human being, that's part of the deal. Right here on this 3D world, we experience that, right? Only to discover we can actually hold all of it and welcome all of it to the table. That's when we really truly become abundant. And when we also understand that you are me and I am you. And so consciousness is constantly looking for, oh, is that it? Is that me? Right? And all of it is consciousness. And so if all of it is consciousness, then we start to practice from a spiritual perspective, holding and giving space to all of it from that place of light, from that place of love. And that's what we practice in our journey, in our 8-week program, because, as much as we can get all the business strategies, which is, I'm going to talk a little bit more about, we get all the business strategies if we don't start to understand and welcome all parts of us, right? The trauma, the dark, in that way, it's always going to be running the bus unconsciously. And in the very first week, what we do is we call it what I call the 3-level clearing, where we start to see how those traumas have imprinted in our body. We start to see how the perception that we see the world through, all of these unconscious perceptions, and we start to see how literally the contraction in your body energetically has happened, right? Okay, so that was a very important question that I forgot to ask. So let me know, have there been mentors in your life that has really resonated that place of abundance? Again, we want to move towards, where we're going, but we also want to have an anchor, right? So it's not just this like etheric place out there. It's like, where am I now, right now? Where is my current reality, right? What in that reality have I achieved? And where am I going? Because I'm always going to go somewhere. I'm always creating something, right? So there's always an expansion. So we want to get out of like, I'm here, but over there must be better. Okay, because that's going to drain you, and that's just simply going to bring you back into this place where you're just going to be like, F it, I'm not doing this anymore. Or you're going to be in this place of overwhelm. You're going to be in this place of, you're going to resist, or you're going to fight it, resist, or you're going to, run away from it, or you're going to freeze. Yeah. So let me know if that makes sense. Okay. So that was question number 4. Okay. Write in the comments. Let me know. Have there been mentors for you, right, that have anchored you in the mind, body, energetic abundance, okay? Because I was listening to, I've been studying with a teacher of mine, Michael Beckwith, for a while, and he said, community creates immunity. So if you have a high vibe tribe, any toxic or what we call lower vibrations, the ones that it just doesn't serve you. We're not judging them, we're not exiling them, we're just realizing, okay, around that type of person, it sort of brings me in that energetic, downward spiral. So I like this idea of community creates immunity from those kind of lower vibrations, and brings you into that higher vibration, into that vortex. And just as a side note, energetically, if you, and those of you who work with energy, you might be noticing this, energetically, your vibration, whatever you're resonating at, if it's not congruent with another vibration, it's kind of going to be like a swift kick out of your vortex. So let me know in the comments if you've been noticing this. If in relationships, if in ideas, if in, you know, your Facebook feed, if it, you know, that it's like it's going to be the swift kick out of your vortex. Meaning to say that the contrast is going to be so evident that it's going to be in your face, and it's almost like this is your vortex, and it's like, and then it will literally bounce off of your vortex. Okay, so this is why this work right now is super duper important, because right now, energetically, right, we're this rock moving in space. In energetic space, we are spiraling, and so that also means energetically things are happening at higher speed. So that also means the way we create happens much more quickly. So whatever it is, your thought. Okay, I don't understand the word. What word are you talking about? What does that mean? Okay, so what word you're talking about? Let me know. Okay, so energetic. Oh, swift kick is okay. Anyway, mode. Let me know, because I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. Okay, yay! And I can see the comments on my phone. How come that happens where it just takes so long? So anyway. So this is why this work right now is super duper important, because otherwise that contrast and that juxtaposition with your relationships, with, you know, your money, with your views, with all that is going to like bang bang bang. It's going to really be in your face, and it's an opportunity. I want you to see this as an opportunity, right? As okay, it's an ability for me to go through what I believe is the grieving process. And it allows you the opportunity to move that energy outside of your vortex and come into, and this is one of the things we teach in our program, really come into your center, your own truth, and not just come there and get stuck there, but actually expand that. Okay, yay, I can see comments. Jasmine is saying, what? That's what happens when you protect your energy and you stay grounded. It's fascinating to witness. And it's a preservation of energy. So it's kind of like, yeah, I like that, Jasmine. Yeah, it's kind of like this, because the other thing too is we have to learn how to protect our energy. But once we do that, right, and once we get centered in our truth, and once we get ground, like literally, this is one of the things we teach in our program, we literally ground in that energy, we also start to take ownership, right, and responsibility for how we co-created that, because I believe that these kind of swift kicks, these kind of these things that are coming super obvious into your field, are also a reflection of your deeper prayer. I talk about this a lot, okay? So one of the deeper prayers I've actually had this year was I want a deeper, and hopefully this is not going off too topic, but I just want to bring this in, where I had this deeper prayer of having more presence with my children. And so I had sort of like one of those, what I would call toxic relationships that I actually didn't realize was toxic. And like a swift kick, they decided, okay, they don't want to be like associated with me. And of course, I had to go through the grieving process, because it was, you know, it was painful, you know, because it was somebody I care about, right? And so, but what had happened was it became this opportunity to actually answer my deeper prayer, okay? So I'll talk, this could be a whole other topic, but I just wanted to bring that in for you guys who may have been experiencing like these juxtapositions of energy, and might be like kind of pulling you off your center, because this is why I'm bringing this workshop now, is that when you start to center in your truth and your own clarity, then everything wraps around that vortex. But if you're constantly going into the chaos of the collective, or the juxtaposition of energies that are not congruent with you, in the problem solving of your reality and not the creation of your reality, it's going to be super painful, right? So mode, I don't know if that you understand. Swift kick is like, you know, like okay, we're not in the same resonance, and then it's going to be like, whew, okay, it very obvious that this energy must like move out of my energetic field. Okay, if that makes sense. And again, Jasmine, what I want to say is once we start to understand that protection, we also can start to, again, hold that energy that is not necessarily congruent with ours, but hold it still with a lot of light and love. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right. So, step number 4, our energy and our someone else's energy. Yeah? Okay. Question mark. I still don't understand the question. Our energy and someone else's energy. So meaning to say, if you're in a certain vibration and somebody else is in another vibration and it just doesn't match, right? If it just doesn't match, then it's going to be life is going to make it very obvious that it doesn't match. Maybe through some resistance, maybe through arguing, maybe through, like, it's going to feel like this, right? Or if you keep on kind of going back to that energy, it's going to feel like this. But if you realize, okay, that's done. Me and you kind of don't, that doesn't work, or that idea doesn't work, or, you know, I have to stop giving my power to this. You know, it can go like that. Okay, so that's like a whole other workshop. I'll do a whole other workshop on that. But again, ask me more questions and hopefully I'm going to clarify for you. So step number 4. Okay, now that you looked at where you have achieved, right? Where, you know, you're doing good. You have the data. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Yay. Okay, good. Okay, where you have that data, I want you now to look at and what's been working, because basically you want to continue what's working and expand on what's working. But you also want to look at, where do I need help? And that's why I asked you the last question about mentoring. Where do I need help? Okay. I interviewed a client last week, Kate, and I really highly recommend you go back, because she is an example that will restore your faith in miracles and magic. Okay, so she's a human being kind of living through that. She was diagnosed through cancer, and she had a dream business, dream life in her heart for the last 10 years. She came to me when pretty much, like in her words, everything was going downhill. The shit was hitting the fan. You know, she's diagnosed with cancer, all these toxic relationships. It was just sort of like very, very toxic, right? And these codependent relationships. And so she came to me, it's called the power of decision. She came to me in the time, right, where she realized, okay, I have my spiritual practice. You know, I've been doing my things of what I can do. But she came to me and she realized, I need help. And then in what I teach you guys in marketing is you simply speak from your experience. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm simply speaking from my experience. And what happens is you become this, you resonate, and people who are congruent with that resonation start to magnetize towards you. Right? So I was just speaking and doing my thing, and then she came to me and she's like, yeah, whatever you're doing, I know that we want to work together. And she came from this, and again, this is her own spiritual practice coming into play. It came from, and I talked all about this last week, it came from this place where it was just channeled through her. And she said to her, in her mind, it wasn't this intellectual process, it just came to her. You need to release these toxic relationships, and you need to take this program. And that's what's going to change your life. And today, you know, she's healthy. She's in this place where she literally, the business of her dreams is the thing she's doing now. She's giving back to young adults with addiction. Like it's literally from 1 year of, dying, so there's part of her that was dying, right? To being reborn, right? And it simply came from that decision. And it simply also came from recognizing, hello, yes, I can use a little help here, right? Because what I realize is that we don't heal alone, okay? I used to kind of like spend a lot of time alone, like, trying to be the monk, being the hermit, working on my business like the Lone Ranger, or just doing it on my own. And guess what? I realized it's working, but it's not really working. Because if we realize we are one and consciousness is always trying to find itself in other beings, and we are like these magnets, those who resonate and align with your soul and start to become congruent will appear if you allow them to, right? And you start to get clear on where you're going towards. That's why we're doing this workshop today, right? Because the teachers that you need will continue to appear constantly. It could be a grocery store clerk in a moment. It could be, coaches. It could be a therapist. It could be a friend. But life will continually move through you. So there's the three stages of spiritual growth. Life is happening to me, the victim stage. Life is happening for me, that's the manifestation stage. Life is happening through me, that's a channeling stage. In week 4 of our program, I teach you how to clear the mind so that your soul is able to move through. And life is happening as me. That is the being surrender stage, which is another thing we practice, is tapping into our eternal self. Okay, when we tap into our eternal self, we start to understand what it means to surrender. And this is not a level process. It's a spiral process. Some places you are totally mastering, and some places you are in victim mode. So don't think, oh my God, I'm not in the highest level. Okay, because that's kind of like a human experience where we start to think things are linear when actually they're all happening all at once. But we have decided as souls to what does it mean to have a beginning and an end? What does it mean to have your body, my body? What does it mean? Okay. So when you are looking for mentors and when you're thinking of people in your life, you want to start to think from a strategic level, people that are you hiring as your team, okay, that is helping you support, once you have clarity in your business, support you. And you also want to start to look at hiring not just what we call down, but we want to also hire up. Coaches that you're like, that resonance is where I'm moving towards. That outcome is where I'm moving towards. The way that they're resonating in life, the way they're experiencing life, the way they feel, right, is where I'm moving towards. So it's just consciousness seeing like, oh, that's me. And you move towards it, right? So you want to start to think about, where do I need help? Because again, if we come from that state of thinking that abundance is not already here, we're going to come, well, I don't have enough money. Oh, no, I can't. Oh, I'm not enough. Oh, I'm not worthy. All of this stuff. When we just realize, if I just start to get clear on what it is I want, things start to happen through me. Things start to happen for me. Things start to happen as me. Okay? And the as me is going to show up in your life. And it's going to show up in many different ways. It's going to show up is these triggers that trigger, chronic emotions. Okay? And that's consciousness saying, hey, we still have to be conscious of this. I want you to look at this. And then there's going to be triggers of mentors in your life that are like, like the party's over here, and this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. Here it is, because this is what we're resonating with. Let me know if this is making sense. Okay? So let me review. Let me review. Okay? One, the questions we asked, right, is just start to choose, where am I achieving in certain states of my life in abundance? Not where I'm not achieving, okay? Because that right away just cuts everything off, and you're not in creation mode, you're in problem solving mode, and you start to go into this intellectual, like, this is the problem, this is the solution, this is the problem, this is the solution. But guess what? Every time you do that, there's always a problem, and then there's always a solution. So you want to go in creation, and you want to start to see what I've already created, right? So number one, we start to look at, okay, financially, what financial goals have you achieved? I don't care if it was 10 years ago. I don't care, you know what I mean? Just look at that, okay? And take to really look at it. I was going to take a hard look, but no. Take a deeper look, Maybe you created a certification. Maybe that now you are in this abundance of teaching that. Maybe, you raise your prices a little bit. Maybe you're a business model that this has more potential to double my income. This has more potential to do what I love and less of what the things I train. Okay? So look at the things you've achieved financially in your relationships. Okay? The deeper connections that you've created, and maybe start with yourself. Okay? If you're like, blah, whatever, everyone's our a-holes around me. Start with yourself. And then also look at, well, if you haven't created relationships in the way that you want, in that abundance you want, how do you want it, right? How do you want it? Okay? And then, what did we also say? Health, okay? In the last 10 years, or whatever it is, like, what are the health things that you've achieved? Do you now eat more organic foods? Do you now drink more water? Do you now, cook more of your food? Do you now, have a prayer and you have a community to eat food with to make it a sacred, experience? What is it? Okay, and number 4, who are the mentors who have resonated abundance with you and for you and exemplified it so that your consciousness and consciousness are like, oh, hello, hi. And you see and feel each other from that soul level. Okay? And then why we want to write all of that down. So write it all out in your journal. Okay, this is step number 1. This is something that you need to kind of just sit with. Think about it. You're setting up yourself for 365 days. It's not just going to come okay, you spend 5 minutes on it and woohoo, 365 days are done. Okay, so give yourself time, and that's why we're starting the process now. So this is great. We have this moment where we can really start to utilize and leverage our energy in a way that's going to create abundance and resonate in abundance versus, distract yourself or worry or hope or pray. Okay? That's not going to work. Okay? So we want to start to look at the data. And step number 1, look at the data that's been working. Okay? Because your left brain needs that. It's like, yes, okay, yes, I have been achieving. Yes, abundance is already here. Remember? Okay? Number 2, if these things are true, then what's possible for next year? Ooh, if I made this much and I can double it to this much, and then I can do, and more than I can imagine. So you want to put some fun financial, okay, I want to double it. So that, if I made 100K, then it's 200K next year. And you want to allow yourself to say it's that and more than I can imagine, because you don't want to limit yourself to what it is that you can create. Okay. Also very important to understand as you start to decide these things, what you want it to feel like. Okay. Number 3, note the practices spiritually and business-wise, how you got there. Okay. So let me just read you some of the things I wrote. Okay. So journaling, that's why I talk about journaling. Okay. It's probably one of the most powerful techniques that I talked about already that will change your life. Okay. Coaching. Okay, I have my own coaches. I have a lot of coaches. Okay, my somatic coach is my body coach. I have my energy coach. I have my business coach. I have my hypnotherapist coach. I have all kinds of coaches, right? So coaching is what's been working. Keeping myself, I've done a lot of sports and weight training has been working. Spending time with friends have been working. So I wrote a whole bunch of things that's been working. I also wrote business-wise what has been working, in my business, what's been working. And I suggest you actually do this every week. Okay? With your business, you want to start to look at what's working so that you can expand on that. Because otherwise, again, if you don't have an anchor, it's very hard to go out to sea and let yourself expand, because you're just going to get lost in the sea thinking, I gotta swim, versus you got this anchor and recognizing this is what's working. Okay, and then you can always come back to that so that you can anchor yourself there again. And right. Yeah, it's simple. It's just our spiritual practice. We understand meditation helps us, but there's a difference between actually practicing it, and not. Practicing it gives you an outcome, and not practicing it gives you an outcome. So it's success and abundance doesn't come from if you're good enough or you're smart enough or you're expert enough. It literally comes from habitual practice. And that's why I'm giving you this framework, guys, because it's so simple. And what I always say is simple, deep does not have to be complex. That it's kind of, we have this advantage as spiritual entrepreneurs because we have that discipline. Okay? And then step number 4, where do we need help? This is where we have the courage and we allow, okay, teachers in our life to continue to reflect to us, the triggers that are happening in our life, the teachers that are reflecting abundance in our life, the teachers that are reflecting, ooh, yeah, that's what I want to feel like and wanna, that's what abundance is for me. Ooh, right? Okay. So start to think about, where do you need help? Again, because we are a collective and a collective thrives. Human beings thrive on each other. And the thing is, it's like, I was listening to somebody, the teacher, the other day, and she was talking about this, my last point. She's talking about if you have this need to be alone, it's not because everyone out there are a-holes. It's because there are certain things within yourself that you haven't processed, so that when you are out with human beings, because other human beings need other human beings, this is Teal Swan, then, what it is if you haven't processed it, then what it is, you want to be able to be around other human beings, you see? And again, that's one of the biggest things I teach you guys, is to welcome all of your parts to the table. This is the Buddha talks about, welcome, your dark side, or I don't know how he talks about it, but he welcomed them for tea, right? All of your wounds, all of that, all that pain, right? And when we can do that, then we can start to collaborate with all of ourselves and move towards and expand, right, where we want to go. So one of the energetic things I teach you guys is to literally have the soul, start to speak to you and allow the soul's consciousness to move through you into your body and let yourself root down into the earth and allow Mother Earth's, unconditional love to nourish you. And you have this communion with her because you're here on earth, right? And I teach you guys how to expand into your eternal self. Okay? So that is a practice. Okay, hopefully it makes sense. You look at what it is that you've achieved in abundance. You look at data that's working. You pick, the positive, and if that's true, what's possible for next year. Okay, number 3, what are the spiritual and business practices that got you to where you want to go? Because then you're like, oh, because when you feel lost and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing, you feel overwhelmed. Just look, all right, journaling, all right, breathing, all right, so there's that. And where do I need help? Okay, so start to allow yourself the spaciousness to understand life is always happening as you, because you are eternal conscious being, right? And it will constantly reflect itself in many different ways, right, for you to receive. Okay, so if any of this resonates with you, let me know. Okay, because it's the strategy, right, that I'm trying to draw from you is strategies that you already know. That's where we have to start. That's the baseline. Okay, and then if you were to work with me, what would happen is that we take those strategies and then we continue, and then I would add my experience and we would continue to expand upon those strategies. We want to start with your baseline. We don't want to start with my baseline and then you like, okay, all these things that you're not doing, do these things. Like, it's just going to be too freaking overwhelming. So you want to start to understand your own assets, your own spiritual foundation, and then look at, where have you created success, right? and then expand yourself in those areas, because that's going to give you the longevity. That's going to give you the frequency to be in creation mode. That's what's going to allow you to create the life and business you love. So if that is something that that is being called of you, you want to create a life where your business is aligned with your soul, where you want to create strategies that create abundance, that create, clients that you love, that create a place where it's like you show up to work and you're like, I'm here, everybody, like from this place of energetic abundance and joy and excitement, then DM me, let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you an application, and you're going to write down the answers to the application, and I'm going to read the application, and I'm going to read maybe not just what you're seeing, but what you're not seeing. And then on the call, what we're going to do is we're going to look at where are the blocks. We're going to look at, and we're going to start the 3-level clearing. Where are the blocks at the body? Where are the imprints in the mind? Where is it imprinted energetically? Where did that anchor in you? And how can we start to unravel that so that you can start to move towards where you want to go? Because if you don't look at that, it's continuously going to drive the bus. And this is what would happen with my beloved client, Kate. She had the dream in her heart for 10 years, right? And so we finally looked at all that. And we started to allow all of those parts to collaborate. Because it's not like you're going to be healed and then you're never going to feel doubtful or overwhelmed or stressed or whatever, whatever. It's not the way it works. Okay? These parts of you will always be there, but when you can start to literally welcome them in and love them from that unconditional place, then you start to move forward, and you're not being pulled back, and you're not in this back and forth with that resistant, unconscious aspect of your body, mind, and energy. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So DM me, let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call. Katie will also put a link in the comments to book a call. And that is it for me. Okay, this is a 2-part series. Next week, I want to talk a little bit more about money blocks, and maybe a little bit more strategic about some strategic business ideas. Because, again, if I just started with that, it doesn't really, it's not the right foundation, right? It's kind of like doing the roof of the house without like creating the foundation. So the spiritual practice is the foundation for creating a successful business. So next week, tune in for money blocks. I want to talk about that. And then the last 2 weeks, I want to just do maybe more of a meditation, because it's going to be, Christmas holiday time. Not everyone celebrates Christmas. Okay. So that's it. Looking forward to connecting with you. And reach out to me if you have any questions. And if you want to book a call, I am ready. Bye, guys. Thank you. I'm reading Bo's comment.